What a great start. Hello, Heritage Kingdom kids. Hello. You should know that there's grilled cheese being made feet away from us. So if you hear noises, it's because Max is making grilled cheese. I'm exposing him for that, but that way you don't hear weird noises, okay? So this week is going to be a little bit different because we're starting something new, and it's called Driven. And we're going to be doing that for the next few weeks. I think it's really cool because we're going to have some consistencies through it. So Driven is very similar to what it sounds like. We've talked about this before in some of our small groups, if you remember, but none of you are driving. At least you shouldn't be. But if you were driving, you would know that a smart person keeps very important tools or a toolbox in their car while they drive. And what's cool about this theme is that we can use that for an object lesson for this lesson. And even though we're talking about worship, which is the theme for today, we can use this fun little object as our object lesson. So here I am revealing it to you. This is the treasure toolbox that is definitely a real treasure and a real toolbox and wasn't painted yesterday by me. And you don't need to look too close because, you know, it can't be painted too gold because it's also a toolbox. So it can't be too nice, but it also can't be too, like, not nice. What is in our treasure toolbox? Can you guess? I bet you can. Oh, no. Oh, no. I think that you might have some ideas. Before we do that, I forgot to mention one other thing that's different about this week and possibly the next few weeks, and that is how the questions will be. In the past, sometimes we've come up with the questions, and you have to just answer them on Class Dojo or emailing. That's the same. But this week, the way the questions are going to be set up is that I will have the question and then a few different answers. It'll be multiple choice. So we'll see if that makes it easier or harder for you. We'll find out. I think some of the fake out answers are pretty funny. And so those slides will be put throughout the video and you'll be able to answer the questions. Remember, on Class Dojo or at Miss Jess's email, which is jess.lane@heritagenorthwest.org. Okay, back to the mystery surprise of what's in this box. Bells! Here, you get a bell. And I get a bell. Okay, so tell us, brother, what do bells have to do with worship?
Right, so this seems very strange, because what does bells have to do with anything? So, during the times of Moses and the Israelites, when they were wandering around in the desert, their church was a big old tent called the tabernacle. And there were specific people called priests. And the high priest was the only person allowed to go into the presence of God. And while it might seem strange to us, this was because if anybody else who was not the priest went in there, they would immediately die. And that seems kind of scary. Like, wait, I thought, God, why would that happen? And it's only because, really, that imagine that you would walk into the sun. That's what it is. Like, God is so pure and holy and awesome that he knew that imperfect human beings would have a hard time being around him. And so, in the outfit the priest would wear, they would fasten these bells so that the Israelites would always have a comfort to know that the priest was still walking around in there.
So at that time, these bells, like, this could have represented worship for a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And we know now, and a lot of you would know, that worship feels a lot more free than that. Well, what happened? What changed between the time of when these little bells hung off of very, very, very important men and they went into the little thing and they were the only ones allowed to actually worship God and they kind of worshipped for the other people? What changed to where we can all worship freely now? And that is what I'm going to be talking to you about in the next segment, this very next cool segment, and you will see more of Mr. Treasure Toolbox. Thanks so much for being our bellman, a bell priest story guy.
It would have been hard to live in a time where the only person who could go into God's presence was the high priest. But that's all different today, and I'm here to tell you why. The name of the Bible story today is Curtains. We just learned about the bells that the high priest wore as he went into the most holy place. A large curtain hung between the people and the most holy place. In the Bible, we learn that Jesus came and died on the cross for our sins. The thing that kept the people from coming into the holy place was sin. When Jesus died for me and you, he made it possible for everyone to go into God's presence. Here's a verse that tells us something very important that happened right after Jesus died. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rock split. In this verse, we see that the heavy curtains were split from top to bottom. This shows us that today we can come into God's presence because of what Jesus did. Here you can see I have an old towel from Mr. Toolbox Treasure. It's going to represent the sin in our lives that separates us from God, as well as the curtain that we just talked about. I have written here, not very clearly, very sorry, but sin, and then on the bottom it says me. So, even though it was God's power that tore the curtain, I'm going to rip it with my bare strength because I am just that strong, 100%. When we ask Jesus to come in and forgive us, we are asking for His help to separate us from our sin. We need His help to do this. Just like, I can't rip this by myself. I need help. We get to come to a worship service every week, or right now, have worship at home every week, and experience God's presence in a very real way. We get to do this because of Jesus. I don't know about you, but that makes me want to love God through worship by going to church or having church with my family at home even more. Question 1. Why is the series called Driven? Look at all those 3 answers and enter them in wherever you're entering your answers, and do the same with the following questions. Question 2. What was the topic today in our series called Driven? Pretend this says question 3 even though it says question 4. The what introduced an object that had to do with today's lesson. Question 5, aka question 4. What was today's toolbox treasure? Final question. When Jesus died on the cross, what happened in the temple?
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's new thing called Driven. This is week 1 of it. I think you'll like it. We really liked it.
Yeah.
Remember about the questions and make sure you answer them and make sure you choose like the right answer, A, B, or C, or however I end up doing that. And then you send them to Class Dojo or Miss Jess's email, which I will put here, even though I said it earlier. And good job, guys, putting those questions in. I know a lot of you have been doing that. And remember that still means points for when we're back together. We love you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.